Live. Hello. Right. Just going to wait for anyone to join. Should you wish to do so. It's Friday. It's after lunch, very possibly. Some of you will have already had lunch. Some of you may be working in the office. God bless you. How long for, though? We don't know, do we? We don't know how long people are going to work in the office for. Work from home, says your man. He said that primarily because he's now become a father again. So, I don't know. Tricky. Hope the weather's all right where you are. And we'll see how things go. This is not alcoholic. Just to say, this is not alcoholic. Hello from Evansville, Indiana. How are you guys? Jack Heim. Thank you for joining me, friend. So Jack's in the house in Indiana. Funny you should talk about Indiana because we've got some Indiana Jones stuff happening later on in the year. So that's all to look forward to. But welcome. If you haven't already, thank you very much. If you haven't seen the new video, Jack, while I'm at it, I'll talk to you directly at the stage. You appear to be the only person here. There's people coming, slowly but surely. Then do check out CA, California, maybe. Give me an idea of where is. Sarasota, maybe. I'm taking a wild stab in the dark here, but you'll need to clarify where you are. Tell me where you're calling from or where you're viewing from. But it was really to say that take a look at the channel today. We have uploaded Stunt Challenge 85. It's a very important video, really, because it's 36 years old. You know, it hasn't been seen for 36 years, unless, of course, you've had it at home. Primarily, I'm talking to the UK people, really. You guys in the States may have had a stunt challenge-y type program in the past. And if you have, we've never seen anything over here. I did something similar on Instagram earlier where I was discussing that with folk, and it would be very interesting to see if there was something that you guys had in the States that we could share. I know I've spoken to Debbie Evans, and she has hinted at the idea that she may have footage. I remember somebody telling me about a show that happened in the States. I don't think it was along the same lines as our stunt challenges, but it was a type of stunt challenge, stunt people competing against themselves. That was the idea. This particular show, Stunt Challenge 85, lots of great car gags, a very important stunt as far as the UK was concerned, because Dorothy Ford performs a pipe ramp for the very first time. It'd never been done by a woman, and she performs a belter. I mean, extraordinary, really, really good. Greg Powell said himself it scared him when he looked at it, when he saw it. That's the reality of the whole thing, and some great. There's a lovely cannon roll on there as well from Graham Crowther, who was brought in at the last moment, and all because Rocky was injured. You see, that's what happened. Rocky got injured, of course, on Death Wish 3, wasn't able to take part, and so Rocky's gag would have been the gag that Greg Powell ended up doing, and Graham then jumped in and did Greg Powell's, which was the cannon roll. So that was the idea. Jack, there is a documentary about Smoking the Bandit product called The Bandit. Yes, there is. Yes, it's a very good documentary as well. I remember seeing that when that came out. That's why this channel is quite unique in those respects, is that we're looking and we're isolating those things that really appeal to people, and in particular cases it is the action genre. You know, the action in certain pictures. People will watch movies and they enjoy them enormously, but there are certain aspects of those pictures that they really pick up on, and That's why the Bond films are so successful. People like the action. Smokey and the Bandit, another good example. The first two movies, terrific stuff. The first movie much better than the second one, and the second one much better than all of the other movies that they had after that. But you know, sometimes you get them right, and sometimes you get them wrong. Luckily, majority of the times they get them right. But there's never that much information about. There's making ofs. You know, there are making of documentaries if that's what you want, but it maybe doesn't go into the same sort of detail that we would require, that we would like to see, particularly from an action point of view. So that's what I try and do here. I try and compile as much information as possible. What's the occasion? Is this a publicity stunt? Questions? No, not really. I saw something on there with reference to. Let me just go back and have a look at that for a moment. What's its origins? Was watching last night in Tango, and Edgar Wright refers to several Texas switches in the dance. Now the Texas switch. Okay, the Texas switch is a terminology that started off on stage, and later on was referred to when Bob Simmons started using it. Anyway, as far as cinema was concerned, as the two-man switch. So the Texas switch is where you have two dancers. I haven't seen the movie that you're referring to, the Edgar Wright one. I haven't seen that yet, but I'm referring. Obviously, the two man's the Texas switch is, in this instance, will be two dancers. One of which will be a professional dancer, possibly. One of which will be the actor. During the routine that they're going through, one of them will pass out of shot or will pass behind something in shot and be replaced by a professional dancer. So both actors will now be doubled by professional actors. Maybe there's a great deal of intricate work that might need to be done. From a doubling point of view, there was a situation called the two-man switch where the actor would walk behind an object and the stuntman would then walk out the other side and then perform the stunt, giving the impression that the actor has walked right the way through the entire sequence. So that's what they're referring to there. What else did I see on here? Simon D. That was Patrick Fisher. Patrick, thank you for that. Simon D. I'm a big fan of the 80s Hong Kong stunt crew. Samo, sorry, my screen did. Samo, Mars, Yimbu, Jonathan Ross, 89. Yes, that's right. Yeah, Jude Poyer's sensational. Jude's a remarkable stuntman, and of course has the benefit of working in the Hong Kong business, so he knows the ins and outs of all of that. He's a great individual. Jack Heim, there's a new stuntman documentary with the British stuntmen and women. Yes, Vic Armstrong, Paul Weston. It's called British Bulldogs. It's called British Bulldogs. I was lucky enough to be involved in that project and was an advisor to the director and producers of the show. So I produced all the footage. I gave them the footage, effectively, and the stills and bits and pieces from my archive. But yeah, that's a very, very good one. So it came out on a thing called BritBox, and I don't know if it's available anywhere else, but certainly in the UK it came out on a thing called BritBox. It is due for a Blu-ray release this Christmas. I've written the notes, the Blu-ray sleeve notes for that, and hopefully that will be out in Christmas time. But yes, if you haven't seen that, British Bulldogs, do see that. Simon says Dolph Lundgren, John Hyams also talk about Texas Switch and Universal Soldier. Gary Hymes, very possibly. Regeneration audio commentary. Yeah, the two-man switch. It's actually a very successful piece of kit. You know, it's something that you can do in screen. If you can do it in screen, we covered it, if you remember, on if you see some of my Bond videos, Dr. No. There's a moment where Connery walks behind a number of barrels, and then Bob Simmons walks out the other side. You know, and so the most obvious one is where in You Only Live Twice, Connery as Bond. It's the rooftop fight at the Kobe docks, And Bob Simmons doubles him jumping into a box rig that is down at the bottom, boxes covered with tarpaulin. He jumps down and Connery steps out the other side, giving the impression that he's done the whole fall. So that's doing it in camera. Nowadays, of course, with CGI, you can adapt it. And you don't have to. You can face replacement, all of that sort of stuff. But back then, they did it for real. Patrick says, so was Bob Simmons one of the first stuntmen to use the Texas switch in film? I know it was used in From Russia with Love helicopter scene. Yeah, it wasn't Bob though on From Russia with Love. The helicopter scene. There's a great deal of very interesting stuff as far as From Russia with Love is concerned. In answer to your question, yes, he was one of those early guys. He used to work with Warwick Films, of course, which was part of Cubby Broccoli's setup in those early days prior to Bond. But yeah, the coordinator on From Russia with Love was a guy called Peter Perkins. Bob Simmons has been credited on a number of occasions as the main stunt double for Bob Simmons. Beg your pardon, Bob Simmons has been credited as the stunt double for Connery in that fight, which he wasn't. Peter Perkins doubles Bond, and Jack Cooper doubles Robert Shaw. And the two-man switch thing, again, Peter Perkins jumps over the top of the rock in the helicopter chase and Connery steps out from the other side. So, again, doing it for real, making it work. We've got some more comments coming in here. Graham, who doubled Roger Moore in the Bond films? If we look at 73, we start with Live and Let Die. You got a great many doubles because there was a number of coordinators, but predominantly you would have had Joey Chitwood would have been responsible for the action as far as the driving was concerned. You had the boat wranglers. Jerry Comeau was the guy that did the the boat jump, if you remember, and Ross Kananga, who owned the crocodile farm that they filmed that particular sequence in. He was Bond from the waist down for that jump across the crocodiles, which is completely bizarre. Completely bizarre when you look at it and go, what on earth? But at the time, marvellous stuff. Ross sadly died in 1978. But yeah, number of doubles. Then Man with the Golden Gun. Not to be fair, in Man with the Golden Gun, that was the period of time when I mean the Roger was let's go in order, shall we? Let's look at the obviously there's the jump, the car jump, which was Mr. Willard, Lauren Willard. That was the first time he'd ever done it, and he did that extraordinary jump, and remarkable stuff. And to do it once, I mean, he hadn't even rehearsed it. He just did it the once. It'd been rehearsed by a load of other people. But for the rest of that sequence, that is just fantastic stuff. But predominantly during the rest of the series, from The Spy Who Loved Me onwards, he was doubled by Martin Grace, and then he was also doubled by Pat Banter for a period of time in For Your Eyes Only. And Martin Grace, of course, came back, but there's a number of doubles. He's had a number of doubles during the course of his tenure, whereas, of course, Connery would have had just the one or two. Simon, what do you think the best ever use example is? Seamless of the Texas switch. Yeah, well, I think it's just that, not just in Bond films. There's an interesting idea. Yes, that's very good. I'm going to have to explore that a bit further because that probably needs to be looked at a bit more. But I'll get back to you on that one if I may. I'll contact you directly. Good show on female stunt performers. What they did, Wonder Woman. Again, I'm just having to go back to my screen here. They stepped backwards from a height that revealed that the film of Wonder Woman look as she jumped up. The Wonder Woman movie, of course, very different, but the TV series TV series was an interesting concept because they could start to use trickery, camera trickery. They would have the stunt double jumping from Jeannie Epper was predominantly the Wonder Woman double for a large proportion of that show. They would have her jumping from something, an aeroplane, a building, for instance, and landing, and then they would reverse the film. So she would be jumping up onto. They did the same with the $6 Million Man, I think, years later. But that was a great deal of camera trickery. If it's the Stunt Woman documentary, I don't think I've seen it in full. I know I've read the book though. Favorite car jump or stunts from any movie? Oh, blimey, Jack, you're asking now. Favorite? Well, I tell you what. There's a movie, and it's very tricky to show you footage of this because copyright has been thrown about left, right, and centre. But the movie's called Black Dog, and it is it's a trucking movie starring Patrick Swayze. No. Bear with me. And the villain is Meatloaf. Okay, I know I've lost a great many of you here, but just bear with me a second. The premise to the movie doesn't make a difference. It's a terrible film. However, the action in it is very, very good indeed. And what they've done is they've taken the concept of car crashes and things of this nature. For instance, the pipe ramp, which they've done on many, many occasions in movies all over the place, and they've done it very successfully with cars. And they've done it here with semi-truck. I'm using the American vernacular, semi-trucks here. And Bob Orrison does one of these. The action was coordinated in part by Vic Armstrong. I know he was second unit director, and I genuinely there is an articulated lorry for those over here this side of the pond. Pipe ramping, that's some job. It's filmed in slow mo. You know I love slow mo. Really well worth watching. So if you get a chance, don't worry about the plot to the film or anything of that nature. It's utter nonsense from start to finish, but the action is fabulous. So I urge you to go and see Black Dog if you haven't already done so. Frank, what do you foresee the Oscars recognizing stunt performers one day? Maybe, Frank. Probably not in my lifetime. I wouldn't have thought, which is a great shame. I find that a great shame. There have been many people who have been campaigning for change for the last 30, 40 years. And they've always said, "Oh, we can't afford to do this, and we don't need any more categories." But then they add one. You know what, really? So I think it's very tricky in that respect. I think that they feel as though they maybe should, but I must say, I don't think they're going to do it anytime soon. It is terrific to see that SAG and the Emmys, they're doing something. We'd like to get BAFTA to do a similar situation here. They're doing ensemble pieces. They also maybe think that, well, the stunt people have their World Stunt Awards. They don't need an Oscar. Well, the Oscar is the highest accolade. The Academy Award is the highest accolade in film. Why shouldn't they have it? You know, sound have got one. I'm not saying that they're less important. Hair and makeup have got one. Hair and makeup didn't get one till the early 80s, I might point out. So they were probably going in a similar vein. But are they more important than action? The trailers that you see for the movies, regardless of whether they're good or bad, they all have the action sequences put in them. In fact, the bad movies, we were just referring to one a moment ago, the bad movies are sold on the trailers, and the trailers and the action in the trailers are all performed by stunt professionals. So it's a tangled web. So I would like to think that they'll do something about that, but will it be in my time? I don't know. 70s Wonder Woman shows. Untold Hollywood Story, that was the one. Yeah, Molly Gregory, good book that. If you haven't read it, please do. A lot of terrific stories, a lot of very difficult stories too. The way in which stunt women have been treated year on year throughout the decades. It's a very difficult read in certain places. And you have to look at the big picture and say, well, has there been change? These women have gone through all of this. Have they gone through it and come out the other side and it's better now? And there are some parties that say, yes, it is better because of what's happened before. And there are other parties that say, no, it's exactly the same. And you don't know who to believe because we're outside looking in. But the book itself gives you a very, very good overview of what happens to performers in the business, particularly women. So if you haven't read that, The Untold Story, it's well worth a read. I repeat the title, The Untold Hollywood Story, Stunt Women. The book is by Molly Gregory. Please check that out. You were a big fan of Black Dog in your VHS days. Passenger 57, yeah, that's a good picture too. What was your favourite James Bond film? My favourite is Casino Royale, says Jack. I'm going to split the crowd, probably. The first Bond movie I ever saw at the cinema was For Your Eyes Only. I was a mere boy of 10 when the movie came out. 11, rather, when the movie came out. And so... I've always loved that film. I think it's fantastic. However, and it goes on really, maybe the ones that I watch on a regular basis, the ones I watch the most, and from a sheer entertainment value, and also the fact if I've had a lousy day, for whatever it was, it doesn't matter what it was, but if I've had a lousy day, I just need to loosen up with a movie. I put Diamonds Are Forever on. It's huge fun. Everybody's having a great time. It's a fun story, great score, it's well cast, good characters. Connery's happy. I think it's brilliant. So I'm a big fan of Diamonds. Graham, do you know Mark Holt? He works in special effects, and you got work experience. Would you really? I don't know Mark Holt. No. Was that in the UK? Maybe expand on that a touch for me, Graham. I don't know that, but that's great. When you get an opportunity to do work experience with somebody who works on special effects on pictures or TV, wow, how exciting! I was lucky enough to work with the sadly no longer with us, Roy Alon. He was such a joy, and I was a massive fan of his. And he taught me so much. A great deal about camera angles and the way in which they use action and the way you can amend it and tweak it and change it and do this and that with it. So I was very lucky in that respect. But yeah, no, that's terrific. Send me some more information about Mark. See if we can track him down. Simon's on. Are you on commission here? You've got some stuff going on. I've just picked up Stephen Lambert's book, Brooklyn to Hollywood, about the stunt history. Yeah. Stephen, actually, he's been in contact. I think we might be trying to organise something. It's printed in a slightly odd format. Elaborate on that for me, Simon, would you please? What's an odd format? I don't know how that would be an odd format. I am familiar with the book. I haven't read the book. I'm familiar with Stephen Lambert. He's also an extraordinary performer with a plethora. I knew I'd use that on a Friday. I haven't used that word for ages. A plethora of work under his belt. I suggest that would be a great read. But yes, he's been in contact, so I think we're going to try and sort something out for the new year. Graham, UK based, was mostly in Glasgow and Ayrshire. Oh, okay. Right, I'll check that out. That's interesting. Maybe he's familiar with Roy and his work. Obviously, Roy used to do a great deal of work on Taggart back in the day up there. That was Roy was one of the coordinators on that show for many years. So yeah, so Stunt Challenge. Just going back to that, those people who've joined us late, if you haven't seen already, go to the channel. You're on the channel now. Go to the new video that was put up there, Stunt Challenge 85. It hasn't been shown for 36 years. which means now we have two. We have two. We have Stunt Challenge 85 and we have Stuntman 86. I have Stuntman 82 and Stuntman 83, right? I've got both of those shows which are being worked on and will be. I've seen Nesbitt, Baldy Man, and the film one. Well, right, okay, so he's worked on those too. Okay, we'll try and track him down then. So we've got those, and they are to be screened. I think 83 will go out before Christmas, and 82 will go out next year because it will be the 40th anniversary, 40 years since that first show presented by Lewis Collins and Derek Thompson. I have done an interview with Derek fairly recently in regards to the Stunt Challenge programs. He's got some memories regarding that, and I'm a bit of a racing fan, horse racing fan too, so we managed to chat about, because obviously Derek's from racing stock, a bit of a jockey himself in the early days, and now is a journalist, of course, and predominantly works in the field of racing for the Racing Channel, and was, of course, ITV Racing and Channel 4 Racing back in the day. So we have a chat about all of those bits and pieces. That'll be happening fairly soon as well. So that's good. And I put something up the other day about some of the bits and pieces that we've got coming. We were talking about the making of, and how a lot of these shows just kind of glance or go across the surface of some of these bits, and we want to deep dive into some of these bits. Well, we've got some great looks at Superman 2, Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's coming up as well. That will probably start the Indiana Jones series, and we'll go through all of those pictures at some point. Romancing the Stone, Omega Man, the Omega Man, which now I want to try and remember the name of the movie. Oh, I Am Legend. I forgot it for a moment. I remembered. I Am Legend, if you remember that, with Will Smith, was a I want to say remake, but maybe it wasn't a remake. It was a reinvention of The Omega Man, which was a movie from 1971 starring Charlton Heston. That's I've always been a fan of that movie, and there's some terrific action in it. So we're going to have a look at that as well. And there's a manner of great stuff coming. Beverly Hills. We did Beverly Hills Cop, if you remember. We're going to have a crack at Beverly Hills Cop as 2, and possibly 3 along the way. So there's all sorts of stuff happening, and I'd like you to pass the word as far as the channel is concerned. I'm trying to get new and exciting footage to show you. Stuff that maybe people haven't seen before, and we can go into that in some sort of detail. But that's the plan. That's the plan going forward. I've got another message here. Let me see what that was. That was Graham. Where can I get the full address of Lewis Collins? Where can I get the full address? Sorry, let me just... Oh, full episode, I beg your pardon, of Lewis Collins. Well, there's a twofold there. I'm just trying to read your question and answer it in my head before I speak it. There is an old episode. There's a playlist on the channel, and has Behind the Stunts episodes. He's in. It's 2013. He passed away in 2013. So you will see a program there. There is also, we did Who Dares Wins not too long ago, and if you go to the playlist Movie Breakdown, you will find Who Dares Wins in that list, and I've gone through that movie in detail. And Lewis, the host of Stuntman 82, which will come out, and we'll do that for you next year. The one that caused most excitement was of course Who Dares Wins. So Who Dares Wins from 1982. If you go to the playlist, which is Movie Breakdowns, you'll find it in there, and we did an episode dedicated to that. Omega Man, yeah, great fire gags in that picture, so I want to pick up on some of those as well. Okay, we're talking about Stephen Lambert's book. It's a huge book with a large font, which is fine, but the text goes right to the top and bottom of each page without a gap. Does it really? Oh, that's interesting. I wonder if it's self-published. Could it be self-published? I say that with with all the best will in the world, obviously, because I've self-published a few bits and pieces the years over, whether it be magazines or books. But um, you have to be very careful about layout, which is why I've decided I don't want to layout really. I try and get my designer colleague and friend Mark Witherspoon to do it for me because he's the very best at what he does. So it's much simpler to do it that way around. But yes, that's one thing to learn. But it's strange how it goes. No lines between it at all. Bond is coming out next year, and the layout of a book of that nature is terribly important, particularly when you're utilizing large quantities of text coupled with pictures that will assist with the description of the text. If you don't have a page layout that works, it's going to be very difficult for somebody to read and understand. I've seen many books which have wonderful pictures. They don't say anything, you know. So if there's too many pictures, in certain cases, it can detract from the content that you're trying to pass through in the text itself. So that's quite an important factor. Self-published. He was interviewed on Viking Samurai's YouTube channel. Bit of an eye strain, yeah. At least it was in large font. I mean, that was a bonus, I suppose. You, as you get older, the eyes go first, you know. Which reminds me, I must go and sort mine out. These are, I used to only use them for reading. Now I need them predominantly for seeing, and the reason I'm not wearing them here is because they will have glare on them. So you'll see the camera image through my specs. So that's not. So that's the reason why I've got them on. I got them off. Terrific documentary called "I Am Evil Knievel," worth watching. Really highlights of Roger Moore's Bond. Have you ever heard of it? Have you ever heard of Evil Knievel? That's well, yes. Um, there was one. I'm trying to think. It was Last of the Gladiators. It was called. It had an official video release, and I thought it was wonderful. Knievel Knievel's a very interesting character because he is referred to as a stuntman, and that bothers me because he's not. And I will explain that to you. And I've had this for years. People saying, "Oh, he's a wonderful stuntman. He's a great stuntman." He's not a stuntman. He's a daredevil, and there is a huge chasm between stuntman and daredevil. Example I will give, if I may. Evil Knievel. Was it the Cow Palace? Might have been the Cow Palace he was jumping. Also did the same at Wembley in '75. He is at the top of the ramp, and bear in mind that the takeoff ramp has to go right into the stands. This is the old Wembley Stadium. Wembley has been redesigned since then. Was demolished, I think, about 2000, and then rebuilt more or less in the same place. But it's a very different looking stadium. But it was very iconic back in those days. So the takeoff ramp is right up in the top of the stands. Evil Knievel will have to come down and of course he's riding these Harleys, you know, or it may not have been a Harley. It was a very big bike though, not specifically a bike that you would see today, where people will jump cars, buses, you name it, they do it. So he has to come down. He has to shift gear 4-5 times, and then has to have the right speed in order to take him up the takeoff ramp and over the, was it 13 buses? 13 buses, I think he was doing. And then to land and do it correctly. Now, the issue here is that when he was in the stands, he knew, after testing the bike, doing drive pasts, and he knew that he was never going to make that jump. Never going to make it. And if you're never going to make it, why do it? Well, the reason, he was in the top of the stands, realizing he's never going to make it. He hasn't got enough power. The shift has been slipping slightly, so he probably won't hit fifth gear at the right speed or whatever it was. The reason he did the jump was because there was 35,000 people in the stadium. Money. That was the only reason why he did it. And he made the jump. And he jumped, and the landing was all wrong. He landed on top of the 13th bus instead of over past the 13th bus, which threw him into the air, and it all ended up in a hospital. I mean, he broke his pelvis. He was in a terrible state, and actually made a statement on a microphone to the stadium and said that he will never ever jump again. The people in the stadium were the last people who'd ever see him jump, because he would never jump again, and he did. I mean, he went the following year, following year he jumped 14 buses, Greyhound buses. But let's take that as a scenario. If a professional stuntman, if this is a movie and this is a stunt situation, you go to the top of that ramp, you realize that something's wrong, you don't go ahead. You know, you make that's very, very important, that decision is, there's something wrong here, we need to change it, and they fix it. And as a daredevil, what you do is go, I can't afford to let these people wait any longer. I must go ahead and do it. Now, he received a great deal of money from ticket prices, obviously, for that particular jump, but also because nobody would touch him with a barge pole as far as insurance was concerned. He would have to pay insurance, he'd have to pay for ambulances and all sorts of other bits and pieces. And I dare say for a great deal of, not so much in Britain because we have the NHS, but in America, you would have to pay for your healthcare. And he has to have cash in order to do that. So these type of situations are very, very worrying. So when people say he was the greatest stuntman, I'm sorry, he wasn't. He was a very, very, very impressive daredevil. Eddie Kidd, on the other hand, and then people will say, well, hang on, Eddie Kidd jumped buses. Yes, he did. And he was again, you know, it's tricky, but Eddie is sadly in a wheelchair these days because of an accident that happened in, was it 1993? I think it might have been 93. No, maybe slightly after that. And of course, had an accident jumping at a motorcycle and landing uphill. Tricky, you know, you wouldn't really want to be landing uphill, and there's a number of implications there. But that's the risk, that's the business to be a daredevil. And he had made a transition for a period of time. So, you know, I think that's a point worth looking at, particularly between the two here. Hooper's a super film. We are going to do that in depth at some point as well. Stunt Wars, now Stunt Wars, they were very good. Was there 3 of those? The first one, which was kind of a documentary, Christopher Reeve hosted that. The second one was Dar Robinson, because and do you remember seeing that on TV at the time? Who introduced it? Roy Alon introduced it, because Roy was one of the top high fallers in the world, and Dar had a reputation for being a high faller. So I thought it was nice that he was hosted, introduced it, and then the show came along. So that was a great one. And the third one was like being on location and watching somebody perform stunts, as I remember. Dar Robinson, the second one, which I watched over, I think he used clips, as I remember, the Presidio. Yeah, exactly, the Presidio foot chase. That's right. That was used in that great knockdown. Was in there as well. So there's some terrific stuff in there. That's great. Well worth looking at. A Wikipedia article, American Stunt Performer and Entertainer, documentary I Am Evil Knievel, made in 2014. Oh, okay. I know there was some stuff when he died, because he would have died around that sort of time, I guess. There was a great deal of documentary stuff came out. Now the BBC did a great deal as well, so I'll check that out and see what's what. Daredevil is a better description for evil, not a stuntman. Evil was a daredevil and a bit of yes, he was a bit of a character by all accounts. That story about him finding the author of the book who'd written the Was it authorized? No, it wasn't. It was an unauthorized biography he'd written and broke both of his arms. You're not going to write again, Sunshine. Found himself in clink over that. So that was tricky. But these are the kind of things, and it's discussions like this, and it's shows like that. Point Break or Haywire. Haywire, I'm going to have a look at. I'm not familiar with Haywire. Point Break, of course, the original was a remarkable show. Aerial stuff's very interesting because normally they are trained parachutists, or that is that's their main niche. Do you know what I mean? You will have stunt performers who will be able to do parachuting. They may get into the business through skydiving. What's the name that I'm thinking of off the top of my head would be Jeff Haberstadt, for instance, would be a good example, who does not only stuff, of course, connected with aerial work, but also does fights and other stunt work or vehicular stunts. Then you look at somebody like B.J. Worth, who is predominantly aerial, because of the extraordinary success that he had in the Bond movies. Then he's managed to work on that and continue with that type of work. But there are some remarkable aerial sequences, which I would like to look at. There's movies with great aerial sequences, which I'd like to look into. But I tend to find that there's a great deal of those. Point Break's a great example. Jocelyn Foster, hello, for your information. VOH. Explain that to me, Jocelyn, because I'm new to all this, I may have missed it, but you've done a show on... Now, Ben-Hur. Don't get me started on Ben-Hur, because... Yakima Kunnison, yes. So I had a clip. When did this happen? It might have been... the channel's been going for about 10 years. And it may well have been 5 years ago, 6 years ago, maybe even longer. I had a clip from the chariot race in Ben-Hur, which, as I obtain a great many of my clips from the show, I obtain them from YouTube. They're already available there. But obviously copyright laws and YouTube laws and bits and pieces. So you have to be very careful with it. But you go through, when you upload videos to YouTube, you guys may well be familiar with this. You upload it, it does the uploading, and then it goes through checks. And it checks to see if there are any claims on the video, or if this video will be blocked worldwide or in certain countries due to its content or due to its status. So I was prepared that if there was a problem, then I wouldn't go ahead with it and I'd have to come at it from a different angle. But it said fine. It made a statement on there saying that the company that produced was it Paramount or 20th Century Fox, one or the other. They said, yep, we are, that belongs to us, so you can't monetize it. I said, well, that's fine, no problem. And but it is available to view, no problem. So super, I let it go, and it got a great many views, so that was nice. Not the whole chariot sequence, because that's, 9 minutes or so. This was a couple of moments, but I was just trying to show people the way in which the doubling can work and where the dummies were, because there's a couple of dummies in that sequence as well, Roman soldiers falling out in front of the chariot as they get run over, and Joe Canutt doubling Charlton Heston going up on the front of that chariot, and little bits and pieces, so it's just tiny stuff. But 2 years later, so it had been up, and then 2 years later, I get a strike. You're allowed 3 and you're out, right? So and it was a formal thing from the company, which I'm pretty sure was 20th Century Fox, and they said, you're not allowed to use this. I said, okay, it bothered me, and therefore you're very conscious of anything that you have in future. You have to make absolutely certain that you're okay with this. And that's the problem, is that some of these rules change along the way. So you've uploaded the video, it's absolutely fine, it's been accepted as super. Further down the line, things change, and they go, no, you can't use this anymore. So Ben-Hur, it's a great idea, but I would have to come at it from a very different angle, because there's a number of things in Ben-Hur which are tricky. Yes, that's right. But Patrick Swayze did do a great deal of his own skydiving in that picture. And again, I'm quite concerned, which if you've seen me on other bits and pieces that I've done in the past, on panels and various other stuff, a little bit concerned about actors doing their own stunts. And skydiving is a stunt, as far as I'm concerned. Particularly if you're passionate about it, doesn't matter who you are, but if you're passionate about it, well, you must go and do it in your spare time. Of course, that's what you do. Super, enjoy it. If you're an actor in a movie and there is the character in the film skydives for the purpose of the exercise and for the purpose of the production, you don't need to do it. Not now, not in this day and age. Before, well, maybe you could have got away with it, for certain bits and pieces. Tom Cruise. I didn't want to mention the word on a Friday because I'll just have a quick drink before I talk about Tom Cruise. It's ginger ale, by the way. Don't get excited. Tom Cruise. I don't understand why he has to perform his own stunts. I get that the character Ethan Hunt is, a major part of the Mission Impossible thing. I'm not disputing that. But as an actor, he doesn't have to do it. As an executive producer, or a producer, I don't know which capacity he is on the Mission Impossible movies, he feels he has to. And one of these days, there is going to be an appalling accident which the only person to blame will be Tom. And that bothers me, because that will then bring to the public's attention a great many other things that maybe shouldn't be happening as far as Tom Cruise is concerned, and that's worrying. Strapping Wade Eastwood, a wonderful stuntman, and obviously an extraordinary individual as far as the safety record is concerned. So not from one moment am I having a go at him at all. He's an amazing individual. But I don't think that the actor, who just happens to be the producer of the movie, should be doing his own stunts. And the problem is, with many situations, is you need to have somebody with an iron fist who will say, you're not doing this, Tom. I don't care whether you're the producer of this movie. You're not doing it. For your own satisfaction, for your own peace of mind. The problem is, in this day and age, is that there are individuals, maybe Tom's one of them, I don't know, I'm purely speculating at this point, who will say, well, if you're not going to let me do it, I'll find somebody else who will, and therefore they go and do it. That's concerning, and I don't want that to be an issue. But I feel there are many, many things that are being done on Mission Impossible movies with Tom that probably don't need to be done. Look at the Bond pictures, for instance. Face replacement. It works. You don't have to have the actor doing all of this bits and pieces. So, reverting back to the original point, back in the day, Patrick Swayze was doing his own skydiving. Super. That's no issue. Nowadays, you don't need to. There's so many options available. Many comments coming in, just trying to go through them here. Digger. Have you heard of the Dukes of Hazzard TV show? I certainly have. The Dukes of Hazzard TV show, I certainly have. Now, Jack, this may interest you if you're a fan. Anybody who is a fan of the Dukes of Hazzard will want to tune in at some points during the course of the Christmas period, because I am going to speak, I'm going to have some time with Corey Eubanks. Corey Eubanks is a remarkable vehicular stuntman. He's a remarkable stuntman, full stop. But we've been chatting, and I've been a huge fan of his for many, many moons. In fact, This show, Behind the Stunts, he's pretty much responsible for it. He has a show called Stunt Stories. And way back when, 8 years ago, something like that, he used to do a thing on YouTube called Stunt Stories. As a professional stuntman, he has some terrific stories about his time on movies and about creating some of the actions for this movie, for that movie, etc. And it was a situation just like this. It was a camera and him, and he would speak to, and I found it fascinating. And I wanted to do something similar, and he was the inspiration behind that. So I managed to get hold of him, and we had a chat. He's working currently. He's doing, he won't mind me saying, but he's currently filming a new series of Walker, Texas Ranger. And when he's finished that, which will be next week sometime, he's going to be free, and we're going to have a chat. We're going to do some, we're going to have an interview, and that will be shared on here as well. So I'm very excited about that. So Corey Eubanks, Dukes of Hazzard, he's jumped the General Lee. He's one of those stunt guys that was there from the very beginning, jumping the General Lee, along with guys like Al Wyatt Jr., sadly no longer with us, and a fabulous individual. So I'm really looking forward to that. So yes, the movie Dukes of Hazzard, and also the movie Starsky and Hutch. I don't know. I was big fans of the TV show. Didn't really, the same appeal. Didn't really have for me when it went to the big screen. But yes, good stuff there. So just catching up some bits here. Tom Cruise got hurt on the last hour. Where will we go back here a bit further? Patrick, Simon, yeah, silent versions of Ben-Hur. Yeah, well, they all got a bit. Yeah, 150 horses were killed in the 1925 version. I tell you what, there was some extraordinary, terrible accidents in those early days. Yakima coming out, of course, who was the second unit director on that chariot chase sequence, was very adamant that that was certainly not going to happen on his watch, and he made it look like there was some serious accidents going on, but nobody was injured. But yeah, you can't start. That's how it starts. You know, you can't start injuring people. Tom Cruise was injured on the last Mission Impossible. That's right. He broke his ankle, I think. Remember, Errol Flynn was against cruelty, in charge of the Light Brigade. Errol's father was a naturalist and biologist. So Errol had a love of animals and women and drink. Oh boy, did he! Yeah. Errol Flynn. Of course, he used to share a house with David Niven. You'd want to be a fly on the wall with those boys, wouldn't you? God, Lord. He was also, on a side note, but was also arrested, and there was a court case for statutory rape back in, 1943, 44, something like that. It was wartime. An extraordinary period. But yeah, a bit of a. What was their house called? Their house was called Cirrhosis by the Sea. That's what they called it. When David Niven and Errol Flynn were housemates. Well, a bit like Burt Reynolds and Hal Needham. That was the kind of place, you know. Never a dull moment in there. But interestingly, yeah, Errol Flynn, not a big fan. He was also, and if you've read David Niven's book, Bring on the Empty Horses, he will explain there about some extraordinary times when Errol was certainly maybe misunderstood by the stunt guys in charge of the Light Brigade. He's having a moment where he's just sorting his hair out, putting his hat on, all this sort of bits and pieces, and all the stunt boys were equipped with rubber lances. They had rubber tips on the end so that there wouldn't be any injuries along the way. And one of the stunt guys thought it would be funny and stuck the tip of this up Errol's horse's behind, and this thing jumped into the air, and Errol flew 19 feet over backwards and landed in a big heap. And of course, what he said then was he said, "All right, which one of you sons of bitches did that?" And this guy said, "I did." "What are you going to do about it?" He said, "Get off your horse, I'll show you." And this monster of a wrangler or a stunt guy got off his horse, and they fought for about 2.5 minutes, and Errol Flynn nearly killed him. You know, and all of a sudden there was a major level of respect. This guy is, okay, you're one of us, and it never happened again. But he was a character in all sorts of respects. I tell you, what an extraordinary, extraordinary man. Yeah, Quantum of Solace, that's right. CG enhanced. Yeah, well, that's I don't know. The skydiving sequence there is a very interesting thing. A great percentage of that was filmed in Milton Keynes, believe it or not. There's a dome area there where you can do indoor skydiving, and they filmed a fair amount of that sequence in there with green screen work. But anyone remember the health and safety or lack of it in Danger Freaks? Danger Freaks is what Grant Page. Who gave me that comment? Sorry, let's just give them a shout while we're here. Black Double Zero. Yes, that was. Have I got that up there? I think I've got it up there in some capacity. It's a terrific documentary, and Grant Page is a very is a very exciting character. Do you know? I don't know whether you've ever seen it, but I've got the mother of all car knockdowns. I think I've got in the playlists. Go and check that out. Car knockdowns. He does a car knockdown at 50 miles an hour or 60 miles an hour. It'll be 50 or 60 miles. He goes up in the air like a bowling ball. I mean, it's unbelievable. But yeah, Danger Freaks is a very interesting situation. You feel as though those boys were really all Australian stunt guys, of course, there, but they were serious macho characters. And then you look at some of the what was the abseil? There's an abseiling sequence and jumping from a cliff into a box rig that really looked quite suspect, if the truth be known. It was 100 feet as well. That was a big jump into a box rig. And, well, I tell you. But that's well worth looking at if you ever get a chance to see that. Stunt Rock. Somebody just mentioned Stunt Rock Blu-ray. Yeah, that's brilliant. Have a go at that as well. That's well worth. Casey O'Neill is top. Yes. Now, Casey O'Neill, I've got a wonderful photograph of Casey O'Neill doubling Daniel Craig on Cowboys and Aliens, leaping from a horse. It's a breathtaking picture. Very, very, very important stuntman, Casey O'Neill, and a really fine character. Does a great deal of great work. And did do some work for Tom Cruise as well. I seem to remember. Yes, but. Have you ever done a top 10 list of no? Well, I tell you that's not entirely true. I did a in Sky when Skyfall came out in 2012. I did James Bond's because it was the 50th anniversary. I did James Bond's 50th or 50 greatest stunts, and I was meant to get round and sort the sound out on that one because that didn't. It was before I had the technology I've got now, but I did a sort of top 50. That's the only time when I've ever gone, this is, I put them in order. I haven't really done that before. Rumour has it Errol Flynn used to measure himself against people's Oscar statues. Yeah, that's what I hear. Errol, if he wasn't an actor, would probably have been a racehorse. I think we'll leave that there. Yeah, so Stunt Rock is well worth a look. And I'd also check out on the Movie Breakdowns playlist, I did Man from Hong Kong. Grant Page, of course, responsible for massive amounts of the action on there. John Noakes climbing Nelson's column on Blue Peter with no ropes on a rickety ladder. It is. And there would be health and safety people who would be dying looking at him going anywhere near it. But he used to, and he was made of solid stuff. Another Blue Peter presenter, of course, was... Peter Duncan. I knew I'd remember his name. I had a mental block from it. Peter Duncan. Duncan Dares is on the YouTube channel as well, and he, becomes a stuntman and works with some great guys. Sadly, many of them no longer with us. Tim Condren, a wonderful stunt coordinator and performer. Big George Cooper is there. Ken Shepherd. I'm not sure Ken's with us anymore. These are terrific guys, Dougie Robinson is on that show as well. Doug is still with us. He's 90 something now, I think, 91. And he's a great character. And I've got some great great footage and interviews with him, which will be going up as well. So we've got so much stuff to look forward to. But keep your suggestions coming, please. I love to hear from you. I don't do these type of things very often, but my plan, my tick in the box, is to do a great many more videos for the new year, and we'll try and keep ourselves occupied. I've had an hour now, so we'll call it a day because I've got some other bits and pieces to do this afternoon. Thank you so much for everybody for joining in. But to say that, go and see Stunt Challenge, go and look at it, enjoy it for what it is. And if you are aware of anybody who has a copy of it, perhaps on VHS or Betamax or whatever it is, please get in touch. Simon, you're very welcome. Thank you very much indeed. If anybody there, has an idea of where they might be able to find it, let me know, and we'll take it from there. Yes, he did. Yeah, that's Dar Robinson died tragically after never breaking a bone. That's very true. He died on a picture called Murder Mystery, I think it was called. And sadly, it was nothing to do with the movie. He was going home, as I recall. It was riding past the camera, so it wasn't anything that was connected with the picture. So please keep your comments coming in, whether it be on here or on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. If you are a Twitter tweeter, then do follow me on there, at Stunt Central on Twitter, Behind the Stunts on Instagram and Facebook. You will find me there. The podcast, if you want to listen to that, if you don't already do so, you'll find them. Thank you, Patrick. You're very welcome. I'm looking forward to next year as well. If you haven't found the podcast already, wherever you get your podcasts, type Behind the Stunts, 3 words, and that's where you'll find them. It's on all of the major platforms, so you should be able to find it from there. And if there is any way that you want to listen to that, you can do so. And then, of course, that's on Wednesday. We always have a podcast on a Wednesday and the YouTube show on the Friday. So until next year time, I'm not going to say next year because I might be back, but there is plenty of stuff to do leading up to Christmas, so look out for it. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. Click the bell for notifications. Yes, quite right. It will be. 82 will be the 40th anniversary of Who Dares Wins. Have another look at that, and maybe have a look at our program up there as well. Thank you, Christopher. That's very kind of you. Love the channel. Good stuff. Plenty more good stuff coming. And all being well, we'll do it all again very soon. So have a great Friday, guys. Thank you very much. All the very best. See you again.